Hello and welcome to my cake kitchen. My name is Gladys, and over here I make simple, informative tutorials to help you navigate cake decorating easily. I also create baking tutorials live, and today we are making a very simple white cake. It is a sort of butter style cake, and I'll be talking you through the ingredients, the purpose for which I am doing this cake, and why. And hopefully take you through an entire bake series. Hopefully, we get to see the result of our bake if time allows us. Otherwise, we're probably going to switch off and then come back just before the cake finishes, and then we'll take it out. So if you're new to baking and you love baking and yet you're not sure about recipes, these live tutorials are resources enough to inform you. So if you're part of the process, you are able to see whether a particular recipe works, and you get see the detailed process of deriving that recipe from just a few ingredients into the form of cake. So if you haven't considered subscribing, or it's the first time you see me here, hello there. My name is Gladys and I'm a baker cake artist. I love to make cakes. I talk cakes and I could die on the hill of cake making. So today I'm just not going to waffle on a lot about the cake we're making, and we are going to jump right into making this simple white butter style cake. Now, this white cake is anything but white. Don't focus on the name. Well, do focus on the name because the name tells you something very peculiar about this type of cake, but it's not so much about just the color. I think the white also refers to the specific ingredients that are added to create the cake in a form in which there are no egg yolks. So traditionally, the white cake is made from oil or some sort of fat, oil and butter, some flour, some rising agent, and rather peculiarly, egg whites instead of egg yolks. And it is from the use of egg whites that the name whites is derived, because without the presence of egg yolks, which has the yellow tinge to a cake, you almost get your cake not yellow looking but white. I have tried this recipe during my research, and the interesting thing I found about this kind of white cake is that whilst it's supposedly named white, don't be alarmed if you don't derive yourself a white cake completely, because depending on what brand of butter or fat is the base of it and flavoring you add, you may lose the uniqueness of the white color, but it doesn't necessarily negate the fact that it is still a white cake because of the exclusive use of egg whites. I also find that the recipe itself, depending on where you're sourcing your information from, is generally adaptable, and there's no one specific recipe that suits all white cakes. But the use of any recipe should be able to derive you a very solid, moist, delicate textured crumb to your cake, which is able to withhold its structure and lends to the layering process of a cake. As a result, because of the name white, it is a good base to some of your favorite colored cakes, including a rainbow cakes. And generally, that is the idea about white cakes. When I tried this recipe on research, I found that I yielded a more close to yellow style cake, but knowing that there is no presence of egg still made me feel confident. The texture of the cake was similar to my general vanilla cake, but let me not confuse you on vanilla cakes. There is no exact cake that is specifically vanilla, except vanilla is a flavoring to any style cake, if you like. So for my general butter style cake that I derive from creaming, which uses whole eggs in the process, as in whole eggs, not exclusively egg whites, the flavoring is vanilla, hence the name vanilla cake. But you can also have a white cake that is flavored with vanilla, which will make it a vanilla white butter cake, if you like. There are so many names. The point is, if you look close at the details or the recipe, you will find that exclusively the ingredients determine the name, in which case this is just exclusively egg whites. Now, why the use of egg whites alone in the cake? Well, there are so many theories for it, but I guess the technique that is used to derive the egg white, which is that the butter is made and the egg whites are whipped, helps to lift the cake and give it a more fluffy and lighter crumb, which lends well to a great mouthfeel and also great for stacking. The use of egg whites alone in a cake, especially in the sponge making process, can lend to a drier cake. So to mitigate that, the use of oil and some moisturizing ingredients such as buttermilk or milk are added to white cake recipes to enhance texture, moistness in the cake, and also crumb and how the cake is derived ultimately. So without waffling on, we're going to talk you through a quick section of the ingredients I'm going to be using here. And if it's your first time you see me here, you'll find that over here it is important that we talk about the ingredients while we're choosing them and how they interact with each other when we make the cake, so that you have a clear understanding of the processes, and so that when you go to make it on your own, you will be confident in deriving some great results. So we are very big on understanding over here. With that in mind, I have some butter here, and into the butter goes in some oil, which is going to be mixed together. Now, why the use of butter and oil here is that butter gives me flavor. I could derive this recipe by using exclusively butter, but remember the part where I mentioned that white cake, the exclusive use of egg whites lends to the drying of the cake out. So using oil, which has tenderizing properties and enhances moisture in the cake, is a good thing to support the structure and profile of the cake in terms of how moist and tender the cake is derived. But if I decided to go down the what do you call it, the wet route and only used why am I laughing? Hello, if you're in the chat there, bear with me. Let me get through this and then I will come and talk to you over there. If you've been here before, or anyone who's been in this chat before knows that we are very information centered, because we aim to give you the best out of the experience here. Right, so there are some of my regulars in the chat. There is Parker, there's okay, totally not me. Okay, totally not me. Well, it is totally not me, is it? Right. And well, I'm just going to say, is it Finks Talker? I can't seem to pronounce that. I've butchered your name, forgive me. Right, and thank you. Is it banana nana? Whoever. Banana. Hello, Noah. Okay. Parkat, Noah. Okay, so right. Yeah, so if you're in the chat there, hello, I've ended up distracting myself. Okay, let's kind of get down to the rules quickly before I move on. Over here, right, we are very information centered. We like to have fun. I love the activity of baking, but more than anything, I also want to make sure that this provides you value and brings you some sort of help in terms of your baking journey. I have a simple proposition and value proposition to you every time I come here, which is to make simple, informative tutorials to help you navigate baking and the cake decorating process, right? So as a result, whilst I want to ensure that we are having so much fun in the chat and I'm interacting with you, focusing on the interaction is going to veer away from the activity of the baking. And unable to do both at the time might just not yield you the watch your great experience. So our rule here is that if we have tasks to get through, you stay patient with me, you stay interactive in the chat. We have two moderators in the chat. Sometimes they're not available on hand. So if you happen to be in the chat there and you can interact with each other and keep the chat really polite and help each other out, that will be amazing. That's great. But when we get through the task at hand, at some point the cake is going to be in the oven and there will be enough time to kind of talk you through everything, and then I'll answer your questions. In the meantime, if you have baking questions related to what we are doing here, you can leave them in the chat. So when I come to answering your questions, I'll be prompt to answer them for you. So essentially that is where we are. But I also noticed that I haven't turned my oven on. So I'm just going to turn this on at 180 degree. I was baking some cupcakes earlier, just before the live started. So talking about the ingredients that I was saying, I could use butter exclusively or oil exclusively. Neither is bad or good. One is not better than the other, my point exactly. But the intention to mix both actually solves a problem for me, in that with the tenderizing and moisturizing properties of the oil, it lends to the structure and moisturizes the cake, whilst the butter brings me some flavor and also structure. So then I don't lose out on the moisture. I'm also going to be using granulated sugar. You can use caster sugar, but on in this instance, I decided to go for granulated sugar, which is the first thing to go in. Over here, normally you would hear creaming your butter and base ingredients. I'm going to be whisking, because the whisking will just help me add a lot more air, because this recipe relies on aerating the butter and caster sugar to serve as a good base for your cake. So I am going to be whisking that instead of creaming. And also I have some recipes. The American recipes will call for cake flour. I'm just using self-raising flour with a teaspoonful of baking powder and a half a teaspoon of baking soda, and that is what we have here. So I am just going to put that on right now. This recipe requires a few processes, because this is the creaming method, which would normally be used to make a butter cake if you like. But I am going to cream this all together. You will see me mix the ingredients together. And then I'm going to move away and get myself the egg white, which will be whipped separately and added to the mix to add to the rise of the cake and also enhance the structure of the cake, which is essentially what creates the name white cake. So I am going to put that here. But one last ingredient that is going to be added is buttermilk. The flour has a pinch of salt, but buttermilk, besides enhancing moisture, also tenderizes. So it brings a lovely textured crumb to the cake, which is what I will be adding to this recipe here. So over here, I am just going to, yes, somebody just said egg white cake. So yes, I kind of think when I say white cake, something seems missing. But whilst we're at it, the next thing I want to add here is a touch of vanilla. Now, if you want to just stick with the name as it comes, like white cake, then you might want to consider a clear type of artificial vanilla that is very clear and doesn't discolor your butter. But for me, I don't mind. I am sticking with the structure for the white instead of the color itself. I don't mind the color at all, because this is just a regular style cake for me. And I only undertook the recipe just so that I will be able to try it and see what other alternatives I can have to my regular vanilla style creamed cake. So that's done. We're going to whisk this for about 2 minutes. The creaming process, like I said, just helps to aerate and force the sugar crystals to dig into the butter, forming air pockets. Into this air pocket throughout the process, and of course the addition of ingredients and the baking will help to keep the structure and rise of the cake. And that is essentially the simplistic science and gist of creaming. That's all. Okay. So whilst this is creaming, I should say my mixer has an off weird sound to it. But whatever is happening with the mixer is completely on me, because I have been slightly belligerent about an issue that was developing with the mixer head and the noise, and I haven't gone and taken care of it. But for those of you just entering the chat, hello there and welcome. We're making an egg white cake, aka white buttered cake, and I am just creaming the sugar and butter together to start with. And the next I am going to add the oil. With that done, the next thing I'm probably going to focus on here is to wipe my hand mixer. Parkat has just posed a question in the chat. Parkat, I will answer you in a moment. Yeah? How are you, by the way? Right. Our creamed sugar, butter, and oil with vanilla has changed from the yellow looking butter that we started with to a very pale colored mixture over here. So I just turned the whisk in just to get the mixing to be homogeneous. And the next thing I'm going to do over here is to add in the buttermilk. Okay, now with our buttermilk gone in, we have derived ourselves a very creamy looking mixture over here that looks so yum, but we can't do anything with that yet. So it's probably good time to add the flour, which I am going to do slowly. If you've asked me a question in the chat, bear with me. I'll come and answer you in a moment. I just want to get this done first before we can. And over here you can see me dumping the butter, the flour in, and that is because I'm mixing this on slow, like really slow. And this is self-raising flour with rising agents in it, so it's not like I am going to overmix this completely. I should probably consider using the paddle attachment. What have I done? Where is the paddle attachment here? Let's see. People, I don't even know where I left my paddle attachments, you know. So okay, it's here. Right. Paddle attachment. Okay, Oscar, are you baking? I think, was it Oscar or Noah who is undertaking some bakes right now in their kitchen? If you're in the chat, where are you watching from? Right. I just don't want to overbake this so much. So what I am going to do now is get my egg white. Get my egg white. If there is noise over here, that is because you are in my home kitchen. So let's continue with what we're doing over here. I should add that the intention to use a hand mixer, it's probably going to be the same for a mixer stand here. The quantity of ingredients here would allow you to use a hand mixer, except if you have just the one hand mixer for the butter, you probably have to transition and wash it and clean it out before using it. So if you're a beginner baker who doesn't have all the tools, I'm here to say this recipe is super beginner friendly and you can get it done with the use of a simple hand mixer. And also, one thing I found about this recipe is that whilst egg yolks might be unhelpful or not useful to the baking, to egg whites when you're using them in meringue and other recipes, for this it's neither here nor there.
I'm not answering the joke.
Okay. I think I've kind of... Can I tell you something, people? If you use the whisk attachment for creaming, swap it quickly from there, okay? Do not use it for the mixing of the flour, because I actually just forgot to swap it over, and I kind of feel like it's kind of ruined. It's not making the texture of my butter here as I would like it, which is annoying. But if I keep mixing it, I'll end up over mixing the butter. So if you're going to use a, first of all, you don't need a whisk attachment to cream it. If you want to cream the butter and sugar, you don't need it. I just needed it as the added and convenient support to create the air pocket base of the creaming when you start doing that. And also, when I finish, I will post the recipe in a link below and also update it on the community post for you to help yourselves too. With that in mind, all of you in the chat, there is Oscar, there is Noah, there is Parkat, there is it Think Talker something? Let me just go P. Let me call you P over there, because I can't seem to pronounce it, and if I tried I will butcher it and it makes me annoyed. That is the name that is spelled PHXNTOKA. If you're there, hello. I don't know how to pronounce your name properly, sorry. Right, so I'm just going to go P over there. All right, and Oscar, is it Oscar or Noah who is baking in their kitchen? Right, so if you're a baker, put a thumbs up in the chat. And you know what, I kind of feel like I am butchering the recipe, because you want to make sure that when mixing the recipe, you are not deflating the air that you have just whipped into it. And I am just getting so vigorous with it, it's not going to help anyone. But hey, welcome to my world of not obeying the rules. Sometimes baking is precision cooking, and you want to make sure that you're sticking to the rules for great results. And with that in mind, our butter is mixed, and you know it's mixed when you can lift it up and then it falls and gives you a ribbon texture over here. So I'm just going to divide it into two pans here. Now, Parkat was asking me about an experience I had with using a whisk attachment for my regular butter style cake, as in butter style sponge I make for my vanilla cake. Let me just focus on this for a moment. I realize that my brain is kind of trying to say, what are you doing? What's anyone thinking you're doing? Whilst also trying to explain the question. So let me get through this and I'll explain it better. So over here, we are dividing the butter into two 7-inch tins. And that is because for this style of butter, you want to make sure that you're baking low and you're baking... Look at me, I've gone and popped the air bubbles. This is just a habit that comes natural to me, and that is because When I make my vanilla style butter cake, when I make my regular vanilla cake, I stamp it on the table to kind of pop out the air bubbles, and I've just done that. So hopefully it doesn't have an adverse effect on our baking. Let me just put that in the oven. It is supposed to be baked at 170 degrees C for 55 minutes to an hour 15 minutes for the quantity, but this is baking at low. I think yesterday when I was researching the recipe and I did my test recipe, it baked at 165 for an hour 15 minutes. So let's see how this is going to go. So I'm just going to put that in the oven. The oven has been preheating the entire time we've been here. This is going to be baking at the center of the oven. And as a cooling system, I'm going to put some water in the oven to kind of cool the system whilst it's baking. And I'm going to, yep. So yeah, that is all done and our bake is in. So, Packats, hello again. Yeah, clumsy, clumsy, clumsy. There we are. You've got my attention now. Thank you. If you've been in the chat, trying to get my attention and I've been so focused on baking, hello and thank you for your patience with me. So Packet was asking me a question about the use of the whisk attachment and the creaming beater. In this case, it's the K mixer, which is used for creaming. Well, in the when I used the whisking, I think the intention was to test the use of the whisk and the creamer or the creaming beater to see what difference it will yield in terms of outcomes for the bake. And it was such an intentional thing I undertook, and that is because one time a subscriber asked me the question, and I've heard so many stories. And simply, if you know about the balloon whisk, which is the whisk attachment, let me just show you. When you buy a mixer, you have various attachments that come with it. You have, my mixers are Kenwoods anyway, so you can swap them. You can think about them in as the same. But for every mixer you buy, no matter what brand, you have a balloon whisk, you have a creaming beater, and then you have the hook, a dough hook that is used for dough making. And we're talking your breads and your other glutinous elements and foods you're going to derived by kneading, if you like. So when I was doing some baking research, and generally some bakers, I think traditionally we have come to associate creaming with this technique in baking, and it's associated with this tool specifically, which is the creaming beater. But some bakers prefer the balloon whisk. Now, traditionally the balloon whisk is for various tasks, including when the task requires whipping so much air into a particular in a particular recipe. So in the making of meringues and certain types of buttercream, the whisk attachment is great, and that is just one of many. But this creaming beater is more associated with creaming your butter, especially if you're making some butter style cakes. And that is just a simplistic summary of what these tools are used for. There are so many uses of each one of them that can be derived by just a quick research on the internet. But keeping it simple, on one of my live series, someone asked me the question, and I realized that even though on the internet or even by research, you'll find that the use of a balloon whisk is not in itself a bad thing for creaming your sugar and butter together. I have never tried it, and over here I like to answer some baker questions. So I undertook the task, and basically I found out, I can tell you guaranteed, that it yields, I won't say a super fluffier bake, but you can tell the difference. The outcome of my bake was, it was light textured, it was evenly topped, except I ended up overfilling the pan. And yeah, it was so deep that the inside was not cooked. So that was probably the first time that I had undertaken a bake, and then one was cooked, one wasn't cooked. Essentially, I derived the same recipe, baked one in a 7-inch pan, which was using the creaming beater. And then I baked the other in a 6-inch pan, which was a 6-inch tall 4-inch. And I filled the pan so much tall with my brain is gone blank. Greaseproof paper. If you've been here, you'll know that I use greaseproof paper, as in greaseproof. Something is wrong with me, people. I think it's been a long day, a very, very long day, and I've been talking since 1:30, because I was actually filming a short series that I was setting up, and then I had a straight 2-hour consultation with one of my loveliest clients and friends. And then after that, I had to come to the kitchen. So my brain is running on a lot of information that has been back to back. So if I seem a little bit like spaced out about it, that is simply because I am probably dry mouth. My mouth is dry, and I am exhausted as well, because I've been talking cakes a lot today. That aside, for that cake, I ended up filling the pan with greaseproof liners, and I overfilled the pan. So the cooking, baking tall, Noah, that's fine. Noah, it's great to have you. Have a great one, and yeah, we will see you soon. Totally not me. Hi there. Hi. I can see. Anyway, that said, I ended up filling the pan with greaseproof paper, and I overfilled it. And I have said here that baking tall can be very technical. You need to make sure that your recipe is optimized for that, because the way the heat rises and affects the cooking process is slightly different to when you're baking shallow. But I bake tall here for convenience, right? So I did overfill the pan, and then it ended up just not cooking in the middle, which was a lesson I learned. But I have since tried the same recipe baking in a larger tin, not too deep, and it's yielded the same results. So I say all that to say, if you prefer to use the balloon whisk, know when and how to use it, because sometimes whipping, as much as when a recipe calls for aerating your base ingredients or your base process, you want to make sure that you do not over aerate it, because sometimes the air, too much air, can create some air pockets in your cake that can lead to tunneling. Now, what is tunneling? Tunneling is when you have air pockets running through your cake batter that ends up expanding and leaving like a crater in the middle of your cake. It can leave that part of the cake slightly uncooked and very tough looking. It is very technical, and you should probably have an understanding of cakes and the cake structure and the crumb integrity to be able to know what is happening there. So whilst the use of certain tools might enhance the process for you, my advice will be, have an understanding of your process and the techniques yourself, and understand why a recipe developer may recommend the use of certain tools before even trying to undertake those tools for yourself. And I hope that answers your question. And totally not me. Did you say there was a bug here? Not me is kind of like, is it me you're talking to? Or did you say, okay, or are we okay? Where? Is it behind me? Totally. I'm trying to think. Did you say I don't like bugs? So yeah, this can be a bit scary. Yeah, I'm still here. I'm still here. It's because somebody's said there was a bug somewhere, and I'm like, I do not like bugs. So I hope like, is it? I am still here. By the way, P, thank you for being there. So yes, I was saying back to where we left off from. Okay, so I take it's not him. Back to what I was saying. I was just saying that to be able to get best results from your recipes, you want to have an understanding of the recipe and follow the specific instructions that have been given to you by the recipe developer. But saying that, it's almost 7:15 tonight. So whilst we're at it, I might as well just transition to making a batch of buttercream so that we can make the best out of it. Now I could probably settle for making what do you call it? I think I will move to making French buttercream because I have some egg yolk. So let's make some French buttercream, which will pair well with the cupcakes in there. And then maybe at another time I'll come back and try Swiss buttercream. Oh no, we have made so much Swiss buttercream already on this channel. And if you haven't tried that before, maybe you want to check that out. But I am just going to settle for French buttercream here today so that it will match well whilst we are also baking the cake. So let's say the cake went in about, let's say 5 past 10 past ish for us. So we're giving it another 50 minutes bake time, and then we'll see. In the meantime, let's measure some ingredients for the French buttercream here. If you don't know what French buttercream is, it's a very creamy egg-based buttercream that is great. And originally, it is made from whisking just the raw egg yolks and adding syrup to it. Of course, that process has changed over time, and you can derive it by actually cooking the egg yolks over a double boiler to kind of bring it to a safe temperature. I have made this recipe here time and again, and you'll find more information on the channel page and on prior live series. So I'll encourage you to check that out. It is such an adaptable recipe. It combines the use of either whole eggs and make whole eggs only, or a mix of whole eggs and egg yolks, or just egg yolks. Either way, you're going to derive yourself a very creamy, textured, great tasting buttercream that is a great accompaniment to your cake. So I'm just going to add in here, we have, these are just because we have the egg yolks derived from the egg whites that we add. I actually wanted to save the egg yolks for a what do you call it? A yellow cake, but perhaps I'll come back and make that properly. The amount that I need is 250. I need 350. So I'm going to add 2 whole eggs. There's a shell in there. Try not to be like me. Okay. There is 370 grams here, and I'm going to add another 350 grams of granulated sugar. Yeah. We're going to mix this together, and I'm going to wipe my wet top, and we will leave this to set aside whilst I try to bring my portable stove onto the worktop so that we can begin to cook these eggs. Now, French buttercream is super adaptable and it tastes great. And if you love vanilla ice cream, like custard sort of flavored vanilla ice cream, this is a bridge between that. It is really nice. It holds on to flavor very well, and I have spoken about this recipe time and again on this channel. So if you don't know anything about French buttercream, you could as well check the channel pages for some more information about that. In the meantime, I have brought my little portable burner here, and we are going to get some water. We have some water over here. And the water is what you call, the water is what is going to form some steam that is going to cook the eggs, as in steam it if you like. Essentially, it's going to pasteurize it. I think what the real thing is, it's going to sort of bring it to a safe temperature where foodborne bacteria will be killed, and then it will be safe, because we definitely do not want to have raw eggs. And the temperature we're aiming for is 160 degree F, 160, 165 degree F, which works out about 72 to 73 degrees C over there. And yeah, anytime bakes. Oh, hi there. Hello. You are back here. Thank you, my lovely. How are you? And Totally Not Me is catching up from East London. Hi, Totally Not Me. Why that name, Totally Not Me? And there is still P over there. P. Thank you for holding the chat down over there and keeping the chat engaged. You can actually do this by using a whisk, as in a hand whisk, but I'm just using a spatula because it allows me to stir stuff in. If you're looking for a plain colored buttercream, it will not be this sort of buttercream, because this buttercream yields very yellow, because I had more egg yolks to use than I would whole eggs. A little part of me had forgotten that I have an open source of heat in front of me, if you like. So perhaps I need to be a little more. Yeah, P, that is there's a whole story about this spatula. I'd rather not tell you. But yes, it's not, it's a spatula that came with a mixer though. And it wasn't meant to look like this. It's because I shaped it like that, because it suited my preferences. Yeah, I was just checking into the oven to see what we have in there. So yeah. I have almost forgotten that I have an open source of heat over here. So yeah, let the open source of heat. Did you say it's shaped like a spanner? Let me see how a spanner. Really? Not exactly. I wouldn't say that, but anyway, we all pancakes. Yeah, it does look like I'm making pancakes. Not that I think, no, yeah, it does look like that, but no, I'm not making pancakes. Well, even though making pancakes would be lovely, wouldn't it, if I was making pancakes for that matter? But no, I'm not making pancakes. I'm trying to make, what do you call it? Anyway, I am going to move this mixer out of sight so we can replace. Okay, so we can replace it with a larger mixer, which would prove useful. So essentially we need this. The good thing about French buttercream, French buttercream is that I don't necessarily need to worry about the stuff that I'll be worried about if I was making Swiss meringue buttercream. Swiss meringue buttercream, if you don't know what it is almost the opposite of French, where you use egg whites. Swiss and Italian are similar except for the technique in deriving them, and you have to be very particular about how you whisk them and how you select your ingredients, and the process is more technical and more pedantic and involved because you want to make sure that you don't have traces of grease or fat that interferes with your meringue making process, which means that the start of your process has to be very intensive by degreasing all your equipment and tools and ridding them of any sort of fat or grease residue of oil. So it makes it a little bit like, do I have to do this? And that's just when I'm tired. But if I'm more energized and feel great in a day, I'm like, okay, let's go make Swiss meringue buttercream. But I don't feel like that every day. So Dolly and Parkat, yeah. Parkat is asking how the cake is in the oven. Well, I just peeped and I guess it should be all right, but we won't know until it's all done. You know what we are like over here. Our hope is to get the entire cakes baked through the session. So it is the reason why I am replacing it. I don't think I want to move the mixer over here. Actually, I do, because eventually I might have to mix the batter and other ingredients in. So yeah, I actually do. I thought I could just leave it on the back end, but perhaps I need to make it a little more of an involved process. Dolly, how are you? Are you back? Dot is a regular on the channel and a friend of ours, and we love her. Now I'm gonna cream. Right, so here's an interesting question for all of you. What color is the cake? The cake is supposed to be a white cake, but if you don't derive a white cake, it doesn't necessarily make it less a white cake. The white is derived from the fact that it makes use of egg whites instead of full eggs, which includes the yolk. So that's the difference essentially. But for those of you in the chat, thank you. For those of you in the chat, okay, Dot, you're out here telling us about your holiday experience just so that those of us who couldn't go on holiday can feel it, right? Thank you. Was there sunshine for you? That's Dot, a friend of the channel who has just returned from holiday with her family. With that said, all of you in the chat there, how many of you are bakers? If you're a baker, leave a thumbs up for us to see. And whilst we're at it, you will notice that whilst in the chat, I didn't ask you to consider subscribing. But yes, whilst we're watching, if you're not subscribed, I'm side-eyeing you. And if you've subscribed, do consider liking the video. As in, the screen on which you're watching this stream, there's 3 buttons on the top right corner. If you tap on it, it will bring you some icons, one of which is the thumbs up button. As of right now, we have about 7 of you in the chat, and that does not include those who have already been and gone. And we only have 7 likes. So if you haven't liked the video, come on now. Let's get YouTube to know that you are having a great experience over here, right? So Parkat, I know you were a baker. So you've told me that on previous streams and we've kept talking. So here's my question. If you're in the, oh my God, P, okay, so you are not a baker, but you love to bake, right? P, where are you joining us from, right? Where are you chatting from? Which country are you in? Are you in the UK here? Because I am streaming from my UK based home kitchen. So where are you streaming from? Where are you joining us from? And oh, Cornwall, P. Okay. Oh, Welcome to the stream. I haven't seen you here before, but I hope you are having fun. You know what I should say to all the new people here. This is, I should apologize to you in advance. This is not our usual sort of energy in the stream. I kind of feel like I want to explain that simply because mostly in the stream we are more engaged and we have so much fun. But like I told you, I've been talking since 1:30. I am tired. Okay, and also when the lives are sort of baking centered and information focused, I need to feel my brain feeling fresh, if you like. So, hey, Delaney. Okay, right. So, if you kind of feel like we're a little bit disjointed, please don't be disheartened. This is not our regular flow. You just met us on a bad day, and there's no second chance for a first impression, I know. But beyond it, I hope that at the end of this stream, you will have some tips to help you undertake a baking time in your own kitchen with confidence. And on that note, let's just welcome Delaney, our moderator who has just entered the chat. Delaney, how are you, darling? Delaney is our moderator. Delaney has been having a great summer break. You will get to know Delaney as time goes on. I think we have all been enjoying the summer break a little more lately. We used to kind of be on the lives a lot, and I mean sometimes up to 3 times a day, depending on what my kitchen is, whether I'm running a busy day in the kitchen. So yeah, last week I was only here twice, and this is my first time this week, and it's Thursday. So we have all been enjoying our summer a little much, and I hope you've had a great summer. How's your summer experience? Delaney, welcome back, darling. Well, Dot is asking, okay, Pete, thank you. I'm glad you've had a great experience nonetheless. So, even though P, you are not a baker, you do like to bake. I'll tell you what, P, if you check on our community, I said community, yeah, on our community home page or on our live sessions, right? Drop down to the pineapple upside down bake. That recipe is chef's kiss. I tried it for the first time over here, right? And we baked it and we had a great time and we derived it. 10 minutes from when it was baked, it was gone. 10 minutes. My son and his dad and my sisters, we gobbled the whole thing. It was baked in a 10-inch pan and it was gone. So, P, if you just enjoy baking simple recipes, try the pineapple upside down. It was recommended by our other moderator, Amanda from Alabama. So try that, P. And yes, Delaney, you haven't been well, darling. Oh my God, I am so sorry. Dot is asking what I'm doing. Dot, I am simply making myself French buttercream just so that we can kill time whilst we wait for our cake to be done. Our cake is baking, so we have 50 minutes. So I thought I might as well just make something of it. But remember that with the eggs, if I'm not being so information centered about French buttercream, don't you worry. There are a ton of videos, including live sessions on the channel where I talk about French buttercream, where I am more focused about delivering the details of the recipe. Nonetheless, it's for this, you saw me use about 250 grams of egg yolks and then 2 whole eggs. The thing with this recipe is it's super adaptable. You can swap things around, and in fact the whole process has been changed around because originally French butter cream is derived from, at this point of doing this would not be necessary. What happens is that you first whisk the egg yolks by themselves in the mixer, and then you boil your syrup to a soft boil stage, and then drip it slowly into the raw eggs, which have been whipped to the ribbon like state or ribbon like texture, sort of. But then again, recently, oh, can we talk a little bit about French buttercream and the variations and different aspects? I received a subscriber question from Devin. Devin was amazing. I hope if I, sometimes when people email me or when I'm dealing with people online, I recognize that their sort of profile on their YouTube that they join these chats from is different from themselves, as in their names and stuff. So I will never know who that is in terms of who joins the chat. But this was Devin. Devin is it New Orleans, I believe, somewhere sunny in America, and he was asking about some tips about French buttercream. It is a great tasting buttercream. It's just not stable at all. In terms of all the buttercream classifications, French buttercream falls under one of those ones that is not stable at all. So as a result of the question that was posed to me, I thought, let me try and find a way to answer that. Obviously, by the time I responded to him, I hadn't done the research. So I gave him my thoughts on what I thought about the instability of French buttercream and my suggestions about what could be done possibly. But because much of our information here is based on experience, like if I don't know something and you ask me, we're not scared to say we don't know, yet we'll find out, because we don't know yet is a good answer to saying the wrong thing. So I know that French buttercream in some form can be a little more stable. And guess what? I came back and I tested a French buttercream recipe that utilized whole eggs. And the intention of using whole eggs in the recipe was because the proteins lend to the structure of the buttercream better compared to just the use of egg yolks that are so fat based, right? And that is just oversimplifying the science of it. I'm sure a proper scientist would have been able to explain that better. But if you follow me on this subject, the intention was to kind of find a way to enhance the stability of the buttercream, and knowing that the use of only egg yolks and also cooking the egg yolks in a double boiler like I normally would do will sort of weaken the structure of the buttercream. So on this note, I decided to do things the other way, which is that I used whole eggs, but the whole eggs were whipped and then I added sugar syrup to it, which meant that the eggs were not raw, but they took the form of what you call Italian meringue buttercream, which uses egg whites. Except I used the Italian meringue process, which in this case I was using whole eggs and added the drip of sugar syrup to it. I left the buttercream. I had made the buttercream the night before, left it on a countertop to see what it would look like more by the morning. And on the day, it was slightly a warm weather day. By morning, there seemingly appeared no change in texture and appearance, because normally when I make French buttercream, right, and I leave it on the countertop on a warm day, by the time you come back, you will see it fall apart. And if you chill it too much, you bring it out, you will see the emulsion break, and the liquid and the fat separates, which creates this cottage cheese looking texture mess, if you like. So I created this testing process using the original form where the syrup was dripped into whole eggs that had been whisked. I think I'll come and try that on a live episode 1. So just follow me on the information and don't worry yourself about catching all the details of it. With that done, I left the recipe after I'd made the buttercream on the countertop. Morning came, I didn't observe any change. I was like, wow, that's a new one. So what I did was then I separated the buttercream, and I left a portion out on a day where the weather was about 19. From 12:30, it was about 19 degrees C around the place in the UK I am. And by 6:30 in the evening, the weather had changed from the 19, and it was alternating between 19 and 21 degrees maximum, right? And I will tell you the buttercream stayed stable. So I say that to say, if you thought French buttercream is not very stable, it depends on what technique and ingredients you are using in your French buttercream. Nonetheless, it is still not as stable as your Italian meringue buttercream. That is your most stable buttercream, and a variation of American buttercream with some stabilizing elements in it. So that's a bit more about buttercream for you to note, but totally not me, right? Totally not me. I am originally from Ghana. So I am Ghanaian. If you're asking me where do I come from, Charity. Okay, Charity. If you want to learn about buttercream, you're welcome. We have a ton of videos here. If you ask anyone in the chat right now, they'll tell you. Much of the people in the chat, except for new people who are just showing up, much of the people here are our everyday friends of the channel. We have Delaney, who is our moderator. We have Parker, we have Dolly, we have a few different people in there. I can't remember everybody, but I say that to say, if you've been here long enough with us, you will know that we have a simple value proposition here on the channel, which is that we want to make the baking process and the science of baking and the process of decorating very easy and understandable. And the reason, I've explained this before, but for the benefit, aquafaba. I'll talk about aquafaba in a moment. Let me just finish saying hello to the newbies who are in the chat. Like I was saying, over here, for the benefit of those of you who are new here, I've been baking for 10 years now, and it started from a simple hobby, and I never thought I would be here, okay? But I also remember the challenges I faced when I started baking, which is that I enjoyed this thing and I wanted to do it more and even better, but I didn't have the resources in terms of all the information I needed. There were some useful people on this platform and some great teachers that I speak about. I recommend Claire Safes, the dessert person. I think you'll find her on, I'll link her details in the description. Erin Jean McDowell. My goodness. If you want some basic pastry style teaching in very advanced yet beginner friendly form, you want to check her out. She's Erin Jean McDowell of Food 52. She undertakes like her lessons. Her videos on Food 52 are almost like lesson material for you, talking through tools, processes, the science, the basics to deriving the cake. She's amazing. I don't watch a lot of YouTube, but I watch the people who have taught me from the beginning when I started baking until I took classes and advanced in my career. I still go back to these people because some of them are accomplished chefs and cooks and experts in their fields. So if you are here to learn to bake, we don't gatekeep. I recommend resources that will prove useful to you, and I also ensure that the processes here are useful for you. So if you're just landing here today, I think we have a more chilled, laid back style video. Normally we're a little bit serious and nerdy out here, but check in the live studio. The live will hand you practical, like, because it's not edited, you get to see me undertake the process from start to finish. And there's information in the description box for you to get the recipe notes, and any other thing. And by the way, there is more information usually in our community post, the community post on YouTube. If you join us there, you will get updates about things that I want to talk about that normally have been discussed slightly. And if I need to advance that information or elaborate more, you'll find more on the community post. And by the way, who was asking me about aquafaba? Yes, I have tried aquafaba. I try to embrace or cater for dietary specific needs when necessary, which has led me to researching about aquafaba. But yes, it's great for what it does as a substitute for some dairy products and some processes that would have required eggs. I think it is amazing. It is not the best for the meringue based recipes though, but it is great for making some form of ganache and other things. I wouldn't say I'm sort of an expert on that field of some diet substitutions, but dietary substitutions. But aquafaba is really amazing for certain tasks and goals. So the thing about this mixer is that once I start whisking the eggs, it is so noisy. I'm not going to be able to talk. It will just feel like I have to scream over the mixer, and I have to turn it on high to be able to get what I need it to do. Essentially, if we're whisking this, we need to whisk it so that it forms a ribbon consistency whilst also cooling the egg white. So you'll see the change in the liquid syrup, egg yolk syrup with sugar to it will increase in volume and look stretchy and ribbon like. I'll show you all of that. But besides changing the consistency and appearance of the content in the mixer, we need it to cool also. So if it doesn't cool, we're not going to be able to add the butter to it. So if I turn the mixer on, I am not going to be able to talk until we are done. But that doesn't mean I have ignored you at all. I'll probably stay here or and keep you engaged in the chat by probably keeping the text going if I can. But yes, if you've been here before, you will know that the two mixers, this is a little louder because it's the powerhouse. It's 6.2 and I think it's about 1200 kilowatts or something like that. I have no idea what that means. So if you understand that, just let me know. But besides that, let's go. patience with me. If you stayed in whilst this mixer was going, thank you very much. Consider that a bit of ASMR for you. I have my butter here that will go in. It's not going in yet, but we want to make sure that our butter is spreadable. I think it's been warm in here, so the butter is slightly melted beyond what I would use it for. So I'm going to put that in the fridge for a minute whilst it settles. You just want to make sure that the butter has slight foam to it before you introduce it into the eggs. I've spoken a lot about butter and its uses, consistency, reasons for use, and have even run tests, basic tests, to kind of show you what consistency you require for certain projects or tasks in a recipe process. So you want to check some of the live videos in the live session, but I'm going to put that in the fridge whilst it settles, and we're going to check the consistency of our egg yolks. Now our egg yolks has gone from what it was to this creamy mixture over here. Look what we what it looks like. It tastes really amazing. If you like, the bit you saw me put in is salt. A pinch of salt will balance out the flavor and give you a more complex taste of your buttercream and enhance it too. So salt is very useful to the making of buttercream. So let me see. Okay, I would just beat it for whisk it for a little more, and then probably we'll come and add the butter. On that note, I think it's time to, I like to add my vanilla at this point, and also add a touch of icing sugar. While some recipes does not necessarily require the icing sugar, I add a little bit of icing sugar depending on quantity here, to sort of also enhance the taste and also balance out the butteriness of the recipe, because some of these recipes and buttercreams can be a little sweet. So our vanilla is in, our sugar is in. That's the 60 ml cup, so it's a quarter of a cup of sugar, and it's not even full. So 49 grams to 50 grams is probably what I'm aiming for, but depending on what my taste profile is at this, or taste preferences are, I can increase that from 60 to about 80 grams, and that is okay. Which is why I said this recipe is super adaptable, so you can change things around if you need it to be. But right now, let's go and whisk that and see. Yes, somebody's raising the subject of butter. Yeah, the downside of French buttercream is that it requires a lot more butter than it's for this quantity. I had about 350 grams of eggs to 350 grams of sugar here, which was cooked and then it's with the 350 grams. Doesn't matter whether you're using only egg whites, egg yolks, it doesn't really matter. It's just 1-to-1, and then you whip it. But for that amount, you're looking at nearly 3 times the same amount of butter. So for that 350 grams of eggs to sugar ratio, we're looking at about 900 grams of butter. But sometimes, depending on what I am doing, I have managed to kind of save myself about 50 grams. But to get a stable, steady, good piping recipe for or buttercream, you're looking at about 900 grams of butter. Whereas for my Swiss meringue buttercream, which uses 360 grams of, is it 360 grams? Oh, look, I'm just trying to think. No, it is, yeah, 360 grams of eggs to 300 grams of sugar. So almost the similar ratio, only a small difference in quantity. You're looking at 360 grams of egg whites to 300 grams of sugar. The total amount of butter I use is 560, which is 560 to 600 grams of butter. Just so that, so for similar quantities, there is a difference of nearly 300 grams of butter, which is a whole block, and sort of is it a quarter or a little less than a quarter, because the butter in the UK, the block is about 250 grams each. So if you pick that butter and you divided it into 5 parts, so a fifth. So you're looking at a whole butter and a fifth of the next batch, which is quite a lot of butter. So in terms of say currency and how, that's about nearly a little over 3 pounds worth of butter. That is depending on what type of butter you're using. At the moment, I think I picked up the Tesco brand. Tesco is a superstore in the UK, just in case you're not UK based. And this was £1.69 because they're doing a price match with Aldi and Lidl. But normally I shop for butter from Costco, where the brand I use, my brain is gone blank, I'm not trying to remember it. But my point is, that cost me, for the 500 grams butter, that cost me 380 for the 500 grams, which works at £1.90. But that's also because I'm buying bulk. So let's just speculate that if I'm buying butter for a block, as in a medium price, let's stay at a medium price of £2 per block of 250 grams butter, it's a saving of nearly £3 for the difference between French and Swiss buttercream. Can you imagine? So if I was making a larger quantity, can you imagine how much money I will be losing making that? But it's not even about that. As a baker, if you derive your costs right, you should be able to mitigate the cost of certain ingredients here and there. But it makes such a huge difference. And also, right, there's some chatter happening in the in the chat about the ingredients, which is important. Normally when I am asked about certain ingredients and substitutions, I realize that as a baker, certain ingredients and substitutions are super regional based on locations, and therefore people just have to be mindful of what recipe they are sourcing and how useful those recipes will be for them. For instance, Serena is in Nigeria. She is a baker in Nigeria. And primarily because Nigeria is a hot country, using butter may not yield you great results because it will melt quickly and it's super unstable. But margarine, which probably uses trans fats and vegetable fats, will be a lot more stable for you over there. So whilst I have never used margarine for buttercream, I know that certain places use margarine, and I'm not mad about that. Different things work in different places, and we have to sort of be open to that understanding. Serena, welcome to the chat. the time that we have been here, I raised the mixer speed, just so that we can sort of whip the batter properly. And I think we have done that okay. So just to give you some look, we have some creamy looking buttercream over here. Right, let's see. Because I put the salt in, I haven't tasted it, so yeah, great. I want to whip it a little more so that the butter changes texture, because if you don't whip your buttercream well to incorporate air whilst also changing the consistency of the butter, sometimes the buttercream can feel it can have a lumpy butter mouth feel where you feel like you are chucking down butter. So I'm going to let that be whisk a bit. And just so you know, if you use the whisk for whisking that, at some point you need to swap it back to a paddle attachment and then beat your buttercream on slow speed, just so that you can get the consistency right for, say, piping or covering your cake, so you don't have air pockets and air bubbles on it. I do not cover my cakes in buttercream. I use it for filling cakes, so that is not generally a concern. But the buttercream is great. There's a balanced flavor because of the salt. The salt cancels out the sugar. The butter is not opposite in proportion to the sugar and eggs. It's great, but the butter is not whipped up properly. So I'm going to leave that to whip properly whilst I tidy up quickly. And then let's not forget we had some cake in the fridge, which we will prep and come back to. Right, so let's try and taste this again. I'm kind of pleased with the taste and mouthfeel, except I think I'll whip this later. Let's go back to the cake and check if it is done, so we can get all that sorted too. In the meantime, what I'm going to do is I'm going to wipe this over and then move the mixer and buttercream to the back here. But like I said, there will be more information about buttercream, especially French buttercream, in the description box for you, as well as previous videos that elaborate so much on the subject of French buttercream for your convenience. Okay, right, so let's put this here. And if you're just joining me in the chat there, hello, 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 welcome. We are baking a white cake, which is an egg white cake. And whilst the cake was baking, we were able to make French buttercream. So we're gonna go check our cake. Our cake has been in for nearly an hour. It went in at 7:05, and it's exactly 8 now. So it's been in the oven for 58 minutes. The bake time is about 55 to an hour 15 minutes, and it's baking at 165 degree ish, and it's been baking for 58 minutes. So let's have a look and see what it is like. Okay. Right. Our bake is done. Great. But for us to be sure, you want to stick a skewer in it, and if it comes back clean, that's it. So our cakes are done, and interestingly, I have made an observation which will be exciting to show you. So let's get ourselves a bake tray. Right. So let's flip our cake. First of all, you will notice that when I put the cake in the tin was battered. We had some butter, which I rubbed in the tin and then added a bit of flour. The base had just this lining in. That's all. The sides I didn't put grease paper, and that is because I needed, bear with me. And that is because I needed the sides, the pan to support the rising of the cake. Well, if you're worried it's hot, yes, it is hot. It's just that I've been doing this for so long, it sometimes comes so natural to me, but I'm not flexing. It is really hot, right? So if you're wondering if the recipe that I used to bake the white cake works, I'll leave you to judge for yourself. And this is also taken into consideration of the fact that we didn't bake the cake using baking strips. If we used baking strips, we could have derived a more lighter textured outside or crust to the cake. But the cake itself has risen evenly over here. This, if you flip it upside down, it's solid, and I'm not going to layer this cake. I'm not going to level these cakes. If you've been on this channel, you will know I am a lover of leveling all the time, because I bake deep, it ends up rising, and sometimes I have lopsidedness and a doming on my cakes. And for this, thankfully, the recipe hasn't had that problem, and it's baked great. So this will be a one-layered cake, if you like. And the next one, which had a split in, if you look at it very closely, you'll find I filled this panel less than that. So that has also contributed to the split in the middle, but still fairly evenly baked. When I tried the recipe during research, I didn't put any cooling mechanism in the oven. As a result, I derived darker textured crumb, and the crust on the cake, I said darker texture crumb, darker texture crust, and it was a little more tough on the outside when I took the cake out. But this is a little more softer and gentle and delicate. And the crumb, I will only find out when the cake itself is cooler and I can cut into it. So if you're looking for a very simple recipe that bakes well with great results, why not? The reason why I preferably do not subscribe to certain baking techniques that requires different technical efforts and tasks is simply this. I bake largely a lot. Like on a given day, I have so much cakes to get through. So adding an added step in the buttercream or creaming process of a cake to derive the results can be a little more exhausting and difficult for me to achieve, which is why I don't. But if you're a beginner and you want to have a selection of different recipes that kind of works for you, that are reliable, that you can really settle on with confidence, this is exactly a great recipe. I am hoping I'll be able to compile all my recipes in one sort of PDF format style so that you can download it, print it, and leave it on a kitchen site somewhere, which is easy for you to access when you come to baking. And I hope that is of some use to you. But with all that said, the intention for these live series and the baking process when I undertake them is to kind of answer a simple question. Does this recipe work? Say, if you don't know anything about baking and you fell onto the internet and you came across a particular baking channel with a recipe, can you trust that the process that has been thought through the videos do work? And for this, I can definitely say yes, because you've watched me start the process and finish it with a great tasting layer of cake here, which I hope will inform and help you achieve great results for your cake in your own home. So that is just about it for this session of the live. If you have questions, I am going to focus on taking those. And in the meantime, welcome again. And whilst you're at it, do consider subscribing, right? Because I have solved a question for you. And if you don't know anything about baking, I suppose this answers a simple question for you, that you can use this recipe for your own bakes. So there was someone in the chat who is dairy free. Hi, Chris. Hi, Chris. Hi, P. Totally me. Yes, we're still here. So here's the thing. We've got the cakes we need. We've got the results we need. If you're completely dairy free, I can see how this probably impacts things for you, that you may want some variation of this. Perhaps I'm just thinking, okay, so you could replace the butter with vegan butter and then stay with the oil. For the liquid to enhance moisture, you can swap for dairy free milk instead of buttermilk and then add vinegar instead. I don't know what we can whip aquafaba to get the consistency that we have gotten to help raise the cake, but I don't know what quantity we need. So I know there are a few things we can substitute. I just don't know for sure because I haven't tried that. But perhaps if you keep dipping your feet into baking, you might want to try that in your own kitchen and let us know. Yes, I will cut this cake up for you to see, but it is hot. If I cut it up, I will only be it will only fall apart. But if you're asking what I'm going to do with this cake, I have already baked 2 taster recipes already. Actually, you know what? I might just so that I can give you an idea of what the crumb is like. I'm just going to cut through the top. Okay. If this cake falls apart, it's on you. Okay, right. I'm not going to force myself. I just want you to see what the crumb looks like. Okay, right. So here's the moment of truth. Look at how it's very delicate. It is a super, super delicate crumb, right? It is very, oh, okay, right. But calling it a white cake perhaps is well deserving, because this is, I just don't want to lift it, right? Calling it a white cake is well deserving, because if you look at the cross section here and the color of it, if we had derived this from whole eggs, it will be more yellow, if you like. and it is so soft and lightly textured. It's really nice. I'm not saying that because I baked it. Of course, I will have to wait for the crumb to settle. You know what? The test recipe I had yesterday, the crumb has been settling. So let's go get that cake. Where is that cake? Yeah, it's here. So I baked exactly the same cake yesterday, just so that we can have okay. I am just going to try and cut the top of the crumb just as I've done this, just so that we can see. Only, okay. Wow. Okay, so I can tell you this for nothing. The crumb is way lighter and it's softly textured. It's not as cushiony as you would have a sponge cake for sure, but it has a texture to it that is different from if I was using whole eggs. Because I make whole eggs, I use whole eggs all the time for my own butter cake recipe. And I like the texture of this. Let's have a taste and see. The vanilla flavor is more prominent in here too. And the crust and crumb. Normally when I make cakes, I leave them on a countertop or I freeze them. And because I was going to be using this very quickly, look, I will say it's a great recipe. The only reason I tested the recipe was because it's my very first time. And I thought I just wanted to give you a recipe you could rely on. So I tested this last night and then I came back and I made it today. And both have yielded great results. And for that, we have the two comparisons of a great crust, nice crumb, and good flavor. Totally me. All right, darling. Perhaps by the time you come back, we'll be gone, but we'll catch you on other lives. Do take care and pray for us. Okay, take care. Bye. So, with that said, P. Can you see how lost I feel in my silence? That is just to say, it's a great tasting cake, and the flavor of the vanilla is so prominent. The crust, it's not dry crispy. Anyway, for those of you who have just joined in the chat, thank you. It's a pleasure to have you. Hyper Aura. Hyper Aura. What do you want to learn? Did you say you wanted me to show you the buttercream recipe? The buttercream has already been done, and the information about the recipe is up on the channel about French buttercream. But at the end of the live, I will update the description box with more information that should prove useful for you. In the meantime, that is our butter cake done. Amazing. Tastes great. Try it out. Let us know how you fare. Continue to watch the channel. Support us. And if you haven't liked this video, do hit the like button. And P and all of you in the chat. Totally me, Chris, and all of you who have kept this chat and live going today. Let me go finish my washing up and carry on with the day, but I'll be back on the next live. Thank you for having me, and I'll see you real soon.